I said, I know. You get that from your dad. It's something we'll have to work on. She kind of thought that was funny. And I said, I know, I like that feeling too, and I get it. And I said, but leadership is not having all the answers and all the solutions. It's having all the great questions. It's inspiring other people toward a common mission. And she goes, that seems much harder and more time consuming. And I said, but yes, it is. And she said, well, what am I gonna do? What you work with leaders, what do leaders do in this situation? I said, well, why don't we have them over for a sleepover Friday night, and we'll watch High School Musical, and y'all can make a catalog together. She goes, leaders have sleepovers? I was like, no, they do not. Under any circumstances, have sleepovers. No. They may watch High School Musical, but they don't tell people about it. So they came over, they spent the night, they made a new catalog. Ellen comes home the next Wednesday with like $400. Thursday, I get an email from the principal that says, Dear Dr. Brown, this is a public middle school in Houston, not a startup incubator. There shall be no cash transactions moving forward. If she'd like to donate the stuff to people, So I'm reading it to Ellen, she's like, okay, credit cards. Like, her dad's a pediatrician, I'm a social scientist, I don't know. It's like that, what was that show with Michael J. Fox?
Family Ties.
Family Ties. It's like he's raised like this, serious business person. So it got me thinking that everything I understand about being a self-actualized person is true in organizations too. So I thought, let me spend, just like with shame, let me spend a couple of months studying shame 6 years later. I said, let me spend a couple of months trying to understand what is at the heart of really transformational leadership. So we set out to find transformational leaders, and we went everywhere from, Ed Catmull at Pixar to the head of special forces to oil and gas industries in Hong Kong. We went all over and had in-depth conversations with people that we thought were transforming cultures and were successful in their work. And we asked one question, and y'all heard that question in my beautiful introduction. What is the future of leadership? Who's going to be around in 5 years and who isn't? And it was the first time in my career where the answer saturated across every single research participant. Never before, and that was my 24th year as a researcher, never before have I heard the same thing from everyone, but everyone was absolute, crystal clear courage. We have to have braver leaders, and we have to have more courageous cultures. We have huge problems, complexity, geopolitical complexity, technology, change. For the first time ever, a group of strangers can band together and take down a brand on social media within 10 minutes. Yep. It's different. It's a different world, and it's going to continue to be a different world. Once you get used to this world, the next world's going to be different. And so I thought, okay, this is important, and this is really interesting. So then I asked, of course, the next research question, which you would do as a social worker, which is, help me operationalize courage. What does that look like? What skills and behaviors are you talking about specifically? This is where things got dicey. About half the leaders said, I don't know, there's no skill, there's no behavior, you just have it or you don't. You're brave or you're not. And the other half were like, I don't know, it's just, you're brave. I know you're daring, you're bold. I was like, okay, I know all the synonyms for courage. I got that. I'm looking for skill sets here, folks. Courage is a great word, but it's gauzy, and I don't understand what it means from you. So I turned the question upside down, which is exactly what I did when I started researching shame and vulnerability. Instead of saying, tell me, this is human nature. And this is a very helpful tool with the people you lead, with colleagues, with everybody in your life. One of the plights of humanity is we do not have language for what is, and we have a ton of language for what isn't. You ask people to tell you about love, they tell you about heartbreak. You ask them to tell you about trust, they tell you about betrayal. I said, okay, I can't get anyone to tell me what courage looks like or what behaviors are aligned with it. What happens in the absence of courage in organizations and on teams with leaders? Then they could talk for hours. But it's saturated across a couple of columns. So let's look at those. So number one, with no close second, in the lack of courageous leadership, people are not having hard conversations. People are literally tapping out of hard conversations. And when things get hard, they scramble, they bullshit, they acquiesce. We just don't stay in. We literally tap out. And I've got such a great example of this. So I'm at working with leaders, and these are leaders. The mean or average year of experience with this company of tenure was about 22 with this group of leaders, 50 officers, executives with a company. One of the big problems they had was a nice problem. How many of you work somewhere where there's a nice problem?
Yep.
You know, like we're really nice. Yeah, we just don't have direct conversation. How many of you think where you work would change overnight if you walked in tomorrow morning and I had a magic wand and every single person that you work with had the capacity for respectful, kind, direct, honest conversation? How many of you think things would change dramatically? I mean, for all of us. Yeah, I mean, Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah, it's just, so I'm working with these leaders and I bring in 3 scenarios, like role plays, right? Where we divide into triads, 2 people do a role play, 1 person observes, we switch, and you know. And so I gave myself 15 minutes for the first one, 30 minutes for the second one, and 45 for the last one, because the last one was a really tough role play. So 15 minutes for the first one, I was like, okay, let's get started. So I see everybody break into their small groups. 30 minutes later, they're still going. 35 minutes later, half the participants in the room have opted out of the exercise. They're not going to complete it. They said it was too difficult. Having this conversation was outside of the culture of kindness that they had developed. And the people still going were a nightmare. Like I walked up to one of the triads and there's a man looking at this woman and this is what he's doing. And so when I see you walking in, I'm happy to see you. I'm glad you work here. I'm glad we work together. I'm glad you do work for this team. I care about you. I'm like, holy shit, she thinks you're gonna kill her?
Yeah.
Like, what is happening? You know, and you know what the role play was? Someone on the team is getting really bad headaches because of the amount of cologne you're wearing every day.
Oh my God.
Now, anybody in here work in HR? Have y'all bullshit yourself into believing that those conversations don't happen every day in companies? Like we have to onboard people for like no perfume. That means Axe. That means your moisturizer. That means your this. Like, you know, that means your hairspray. That means anything that you walk through in your house that could linger on your person. Like these are real conversations we have to have. I mean, I just did a focus group with a group of HR. They're like, yeah, that's not as bad as having to talk to people about not flushing the toilet. I'm like, you know, we're people. No crazier condition than the human condition. Like, this is it. We're it. You can't give up on us because we're all we got, but this is it. You know, and so they, you know, and we never even got to the third one. The third one was, you have to tell someone who reports to you that they did not get the special projects lead because in fact the leadership team does not really trust this person, and it's been a case for over 2 years, and no one that she has or he has reported to has ever told them that there's an issue. I mean, yes or no? Right, we didn't even get there. We're not having tough conversations. So when I ask people, okay, so if you're frustrated, there's a performance issue, there's a behavior issue, and you're too nice to talk to people about it, what do you do? And you know what the resounding answer is across all these groups? We talk about them. We don't talk to you, we talk about you with other people. How many of you think that's nice? Kind, polite, respectful, thoughtful, courageous. We're just tapping out of hard conversations. The next one is fears and feelings. Oh, I hate this one. But it is, I'm getting better at it, and it's just bears out in the data over and over. And we're talking about 400,000 pieces of data over 22 years. As a leader, you either spend a reasonable amount of time attending to fears and feelings, or an unreasonable amount of time playing whack-a-mole with problematic behaviors. You've got to attend to fears and feelings. Here's why we don't do it. One, we don't think we're skilled. And two, we don't understand. We want to believe so desperately that we are a thinking species who on occasion feels something inconveniently, but it'll pass. Like, that's not the way it works. We are a feeling species who on occasion thinks. And we don't know that, like, kind of hypothetically. We know that from like 10 years of pet imaging. We are emotional beings. Emotion drive many of our choices, behaviors, our cognition. And so if you're not attending to fears and feelings, then you are constantly managing the behaviors that those fears and feelings drive. So here's a great example. Hey, need to talk to you for a minute about how you showed up in the meeting. I can see you were really pissed off. That's okay. What's not okay is pounding your fist and rolling your eyes. So here's a really shortcut. We're gonna talk about it in a little bit, boundaries. Boundaries are super simple. What's okay and what's not okay. One of the reasons why we don't do boundary setting very well, and I have to tell you women especially don't do it very well, is because it's not very simpatico with being liked by everybody. You know? But I think we changed the goal to being respected by ourselves and being liked to by people like number 436 on the goal list. So when we set a boundary, we just say no, 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 but we don't say what's okay. So I say to this person, look, here's what's okay. You can be pissed off in the meeting. You can be frustrated. You can't pound your fist and roll your eyes. Gotcha, I apologize, kind of lost it there. It won't happen again. 2 months later, come out of a meeting, need to talk to you about what happened in the meeting. Again,